and Robbo.
Streaming across the globe, Ben Norris, Rob McKnight and David Robinson.
Ben, Rob and Robbo. News and views, entertainment news. It's the Ben, Rob and Robbo. Ben, Rob and Robbo Show. Ben, Rob and Robbo Show.
Welcome to the Ben, Rob and Robbo Show. Here's Rob McKnight.
Hello there and welcome to the Ben, Rob and Robbo Show. It's so great to have your company as we get closer to our 50th episode tomorrow. We're very much looking forward to it. Two boys that have been here for the journey are Ben Norris and David Robinson. Hello boys. Robbo, it's getting exciting.
Well, this is absolutely bloody amazing. I'm very, very excited. We're going to have, heaps of special guests. There'll be a musical number. I believe the Prime Minister is sending it. It's going to be a massive episode. I don't want to say too much.
Ben, do you think he might be over-egging that a little bit?
Well, look, between Robbo and I, we're not as familiar with getting close to 50 as you are, so maybe you're the one that needs to give us the advice.
It is a big week. We've got Charlie Pickering, we've got Peter Overton, we've got eliminated contestants from Masterchef, we've got eliminated contestants from Big Brother. It's all happening right here on the Ben, Rob and Robbo Show. As we say thank you, we've done some audits and we found out we've got 70,000 viewers per week. Just amazing. Ben, the love people have for this show is extraordinary, isn't it?
Well, it's a little overwhelming and humbling, to be honest with you. It's interesting when you go into a store and, do you know what, this is so surreal. It's even hard to explain, but I was in a store last week in Melbourne and trying to look for new lighting and some new bits and pieces, which you might see is evident in my set today. And the guy was like, "Oh, you're Ben from the Ben, Rob and Robbo Show." And
yes.
I was like, I normally get,
Brilliant.
"Oh, you're that guy from, are you Ben from The Biggest Loser?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm a loser." But no.
Oh, I love that. That shows that we're getting there and people are finding us, which is just fantastic. And if you want to help people find us, share the Facebook page, facebook.com/BRR show. Tell your friends how good it is. Tell them it's your lunchtime treat. We'd really appreciate that. But more of that later as we get closer to tomorrow's 50th episode. Meantime, let's get into our hot button topics. And earlier today, there was some exciting news about the fight against COVID-19. Queensland Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk announced that Queensland would be the site for clinical trials on a potential vaccine for the coronavirus. Here's some of what she had to say.
But today we're very excited to be here with Professor Paul Young to talk about the developments now for the start of human clinical trials for a vaccine. This is once again Queensland and Australia leading the way. Queensland leading the way in that it's the first time that there will be clinical trials undertaken, but also too that there is a partner, and that partner is CSL. So that means that production of the vaccine can happen simultaneously at phase 3. This is excellent news. As I said yesterday, we have world-class scientists here in Queensland, and once again we are seeing the effects of that. We were very pleased back in March where we announced $10 million grant towards the development of this vaccine. $10 million, I think that has been very well spent. And in March, Professor Paul Young said to me that the clinical trials would be able to start in July, and he has kept his word. I want to thank UQ for once again showing that Queensland has the best of the best.
I think, and forgive me if I'm wrong, I think she's trying to say Queensland's leading the way, Ben.
Yeah. Well,
no, it is great news, isn't it?
No, it is really good news. And I guess, we have to have a sense of humour during these times. But I am really jealous of you guys being there in Queensland with the warmer weather. It is still kind of sad. And there's a lot of things going on in Victoria which isn't giving people many reason to smile about. But I guess do you know what's really funny is I love listening to Anastasia Palaszczuk. Maybe that's because I love Queensland and I've lived there. But look, I don't really mind who is spending the time and the money on investigating a vaccine. I think it's important. And yeah, look, I think it's about Australia maybe being able to contribute to something globally because it's a global pandemic.
which is just fantastic. And it would just be marvellous if we came through this and found the vaccine. You know I was making a little joke there about pushing the Queensland angle, but it would be fantastic. But do you know what, Ben? It appears many people still just don't get it. New South Wales Police has shut down numerous parties at the weekend. Nine News reports that one gathering had over 100 guests in attendance. Some apparently were wearing face masks, but Robbo, we're only capable of doing the right thing if it's not inconvenience. That's how it seems to me.
Oh, I totally agree with you. Of course, look, happy to pull the weight and things like that, but it's not going to get in the way of my Saturday night parties, is it? Or it's not going to get away in. I want to go hiking this where I want to do there. I want to go shopping. Yeah, you're absolutely right. A wonderful assessment there, observation rather. It is really. Really bad, and I think that's what we're seeing as well with, obviously Corona is very much got Victoria in the lockdown. It looks like New South Wales, I'd almost put money on that they're going to be the next state that has to go back into that lockdown. And why is that? Because people don't do the right thing. We've said this since we went on air. As long as we get it right the first time, you'll be tickety-boo. But they're not doing it.
Ben, it's almost as though I would suggest it was a little bit of something a bit different when we had to self-isolate and stay indoors. And then people just went, I'm done. I need to get out. People don't know how to do it tough. We've never been through a real war like they did in World War II where they had to go into the bunkers and everything like that. The fact is you're being asked to stay inside and watch some TV. Are we really asking that much from people?
Well, I guess complacency is a part of the human condition, and I think being complacent is one of the biggest problems at the moment with battling COVID-19. I have to say, though, that in Victoria, it was a slow start to get on board with this second lockdown, but yesterday was really eerie. I did have to get out and go and do something that was important, which would fit it into the guidelines. And while I was out, it was the quietest I've ever seen Melbourne's roads in my life. So it was quieter than the first time we went into lockdown. So I think it would appear that these huge numbers that are coming out on a daily basis here in Victoria are genuinely starting to take its toll. And I think if anyone can learn from Victoria, that is the rest of the country, and that is that we do need to abide by the government's restrictions and let's tackle this together.
Absolutely. I'm just pleased that the Botox clinics are still open and considered essential services.
I would like, do you know what I would do? I think, hey, you know what? I want to be really clear about this because I'm a 40-year-old man and a lot of people come at me about, how much Botox I've had. I can confirm it's not Botox, it's filler.
Well, I only said that because I assumed you didn't take Botox, so that was why I made that joke. I felt comfortable making that joke. But look, it's funny that you say people are now taking the, we're talking about the fact people don't want to isolate, but they're starting to do the right things. But I tell you, in a welcome sign of unity, Australians are supporting the decision to close Victoria's borders. A national survey has shown that around 85% of respondents thought it was a good idea to shut the borders, with only 6% not agreeing. Victoria is continuing to report triple-digit figures of the coronavirus. The current lockdown is scheduled to last for 6 weeks, but some are saying that Victoria will regret not enforcing harsher lockdowns. Melbourne University epidemiologist Professor Tony Blakely reckons everyone in busy areas should be forced to wear masks. The definition of essential workers should be strengthened, and department stores like Bunnings and Kmart should be closed. The professor believes that short-term pain for long-term gain is the way to go. Robbo, do you think tougher restrictions is what's needed here?
I think those kind of restrictions would not have worked in the first lockdown that the whole country went through. I think they would have been too harsh and people would have just balked at that. What I think, though, is then, yes, I think more people are going to be willing to go, yeah, maybe we should close down Kmart for 2 weeks. Maybe we should close down Bunnings for 2 weeks because we don't want to keep going in and out of lockdown. So I agree with him. And also, if you're going on public transport, you absolutely should be forced to wear a mask. If you're going to a busy supermarket, absolutely you should be forced to wear a mask. These kind of restrictions could exist now only because we failed at the first lockdown.
Ben, you're in Melbourne. We're the epicenter at the moment. Are you seeing more mask wearing, even though because the Premier has said you should do it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's everywhere. And I think that the increase of that was monumental from Friday through to Sunday. So I don't know what was happening in Victoria and whether or not more masks became readily available, but you definitely saw them being worn in communal areas. I was not on public transport over the weekend, but I was at the supermarkets, and I would go as far as saying that 90% of Victorians are now adopting the face mask, which is great. I will say, though, with government information on where people are getting infected and where the areas are, Kmart and Big W and some of those bigger shopping centres aren't the source. They aren't responsible. So I think until we see something, see an outbreak from something like that, I don't necessarily see that we need to shut down some of those stores yet.
Well, that's the big thing. And look, just to wrap this up, there was an interesting point made this morning when Victorian Premier Dan Andrews addressed the idea that COVID-19 is only killing old people. This is what he had to say.
It's not just an illness of the frail-aged, not that makes it any easier to deal with. But I have a message for every single Victorian. This has taken the life of otherwise healthy people of all age groups. The notion that this is simply something that will be tragic if you are very ill already and very old, that is simply not right. This can have catastrophic outcomes, tragic outcomes for people who are otherwise healthy and for people in any age group.
Robbo, I do think that's the point we just keep forgetting. It is seen as something affecting the older generations, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think that's a really big problem also in marketing. It's still politics. You've still got to educate the public. I think possibly there needs to be, probably more media shots of people who are not old and frail, that they are young, otherwise healthy people. I think we need to hear more of those stories. That will certainly help the narrative that it isn't just an old person's disease, but it can really affect every single person. But I think it's good that he came out to say that, because I don't think we've heard that for a while, and I think it's really important to hear that. I'm not saying that we need to hear about exact cases. We're not asking for names and whatever, but I think we do need to be reminded that this does affect everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Ben, I'm interested in getting your thoughts on this. While Victoria sat through another weekend of lockdown, our Prime Minister was living it up at the footy. But is that a bad thing? Some on Twitter are saying it was in poor form for the PM to be enjoying himself while the country's second largest city was in lockdown. But others are saying it's a good thing that he was out and about supporting his team and the community. Ben, what do you think? Should the Prime Minister be leading by example, even though he's not in the affected area?
Look, I'm really split down the middle on this, and I think the representation from Scott Morrison at the start of the year was a disappointment when he was in Hawaii during the bushfires. I think that was a definite sign of misleadership, of bad leadership for the country. However, I have come a long way since that journey with Scott Morrison. I think he's been doing a great job with COVID-19, and I think this would shock a lot of people out there that know me, but I don't necessarily think it was such a bad thing. I see sport in this country to be a really vital part of our routine, and it is an outlet for people. And I think for a man who has been at the forefront of some horrific details and having to make some really big decisions, I think it's okay that he was able to take some time out and, like a lot of people, maybe, enjoy some sport. Now, if this was 10 years ago, and I just need to be clear about this, I wouldn't have agreed with it. But at the end of the day, this man has a telephone, and a telephone is a portable office like nothing that we would have seen in the 80s and 90s and in the noughties. He is there ready to take those calls.
It's not even about that, though, Ben. It's not about being able to get the information. It's about setting an example. You have Victoria in lockdown. People are being told to stay at home, and then you're seeing the Prime Minister, and where the Prime Minister goes, cameras go, and there he is parading around at a sporting match, and it's doesn't look good, especially coming off, and we saw those photos a little earlier of him in Hawaii during the bushfire crisis. He had gotten over that. That could have become a big election problem for him, and he
100%. But look,
You know,
putting those
and-
two things together, had we not have seen that at the start of the year, would you have thought about this in this
Probably
instance?
not.
I don't necessarily think so. No, you wouldn't have. And at the end of the day, I really didn't side with Scott Morrison. I was very disappointed in him. I was expecting that he would basically be thrown out because of his poor leadership on handling bushfires being in Hawaii. But we've come a long way since then. And I also just want to be really careful about how much scrutiny we have to put on this man. Yes, he's the Prime Minister. Yes, he's running the country. But like anything that happens to any Australian, we don't have to show a fake face just to be able to represent stuff. And I also
No,
think
that's
it's really,
true, but it's about perceptions, and especially coming off Hawaii. I think
So you
that
want to make something. I think. Sorry, I keep interrupting you, but I can't understand this. I'm finding it difficult to understand someone having to fake their emotions because it suits with a particular style or a
it's
look.
not about having to fake the emotions. It's about saying Australia's second largest city, you have to go into lockdown, but I'm the Prime Minister and I'm swanning about. It's called leading by example. Yes, he's not in Victoria, but when you go to a public event, it's not a good look. And I'll move Hawaii out of it, but especially coming off Hawaii, where I think he got the backlash he deserved, and he was coming through that because I agree, he's done a fabulous job with COVID-19 and the way he's held press conferences and his information. Started a bit wobbly, but he's found his stride. But this was a misstep, in my opinion.
Well, I don't agree with you.
Look, no, I don't agree with you either, Rob, at all. I just think if you're suggesting that everyone who is in any kind of power, they must remain in their homes, lights off, can't leave, just because they're in a position of power, I just think that's just not right. I think that if he went to a football game in Victoria, I think that would be a bad look. But at the same time, you have to reward all of the people who did the right thing, all the states who did the right thing. I think Victoria's just unlucky, but that's a different story. But do you want to shut up shop until it's all gone? We need to see leadership where someone goes, we've done the right thing. I support my team. But I'm just wondering, Rob, and I'm going to go back to that question. If anyone's in a position of power, should they lead by example? So we're talking about policemen shouldn't go anywhere.
No, I'm talking about the Prime Minister of our country, the man we look to.
No. And we're looking to him for leadership, and he's going, thank you to everyone. He's out there because we need to start getting the country back on board. I just think it's kind of petty to go, he's the Prime Minister, so he can't be a person. I think he's learnt a lot from Hawaii. Again, like Ben, I can't believe I'm defending this man, but he's learnt a lot from Hawaii. He's learnt a lot from bushfires. And I just think we need to see him being a human as well. If he was a robot that, he speaks a lot of bullshit, but if he was just a robot and not a real person, we need to see our leader as a real person. And he wasn't doing anything wrong by going to New South Wales.
As a real person, I think this was stupid. I think it gave his detractors ammunition. It was just politically stupid.
When can he go out?
When the crisis is over.
You're right. No.
The crisis is over. When's that going to be?
I don't know.
A good thing for people to understand as well is to get your point across, you don't always have to emulate one emotion. I've worked on many different charities. In 2013, I worked on 14 charities. And what I was commended for was not turning up at a charity and fitting an emotion with the cause.
Sure.
And that was that sometimes you need to be able to show true leadership and you have to be authentic. And being authentic and getting those messages out there doesn't mean having to look all sad and doom and gloom. And also, sport in this country is very vital. And I don't want to rely on the stuff that he was saying earlier in the year, like, oh, the cricketers are going out there and doing it for us. It's not about that. I think it's just about being able to show to the country in a time of real uncertainty that it's important to find things in life to enjoy and not to give up all hope. We don't have to throw our head down to be able to cope with this. Sure, we have to follow government officials, but absolutely we do not have to give up on life.
Ring the bell, Rob. I agree with Ben. Ring the bell. Ring the bell. I agree with Ben.
All I'm going to say is that if I was Scott Morrison's media advisor, I would have begged him not to go to the football because it's an easy kick to everyone who is a detractor of his. I'd love to know what our viewers think. Just go to facebook.com/BRR show or tweet us at at BRR Show on Twitter. Look, moving on, and ASIO is seeking to have its powers broadened to fight against lone wolf attacks and radicalisation. The spy agency wants to be able to track people down without a warrant and be able to interview people as young as 14 without their parents present. Critics agree that we need top security, but say there aren't enough safeguards to protect people. Robbo, we live in an increasingly scary world. Is this just par for the course?
I'm okay with different things like this happening. What I do want to see is the safeguards. Now, what I don't like, and we've actually talked about this issue before on the show when it first came up, and it was a case of the parents don't need to be present. Now, if I had a 14-year-old, there's no bloody way that people are going to question, him or her without me being there.
Absolutely.
I think that's outrageous. Also, the tracking of people. Oh, I'm going to sound like Ben Norris here now. If you've got nothing to hide, then that's okay. But wait. But what it does do is it allows it to become abused. So, for example, remember this, there was a New South Wales minister who was using his ministerial car and he was going to a gay sex club in Sydney. Now, it was debated whether that was, proper news, but it wasn't thought of because he was used. Sorry,
go on.
Kanye, you're at it again. No, okay, thanks. But
I'm going to let you finish.
Thanks, Kanye.
He was using his ministerial car to do something, so that kind of made it news. But what I would worry, though, is that if, for whatever reason, someone in ASIO didn't like him or didn't like someone in the community, they can slap a tracking device on someone's car, and then perhaps they could leak it to go, oh, this person actually went to a brothel, or this person went to a strip club. It's got nothing to do with anything, but I'm worried about the abuses of power that comes with not having to get a warrant.
100%. I don't buy this if you've got nothing to hide. So I'm not entitled to any privacy because if I've got nothing to hide, I can't have privacy because, well, if you've got nothing to hide, Rob, let us go through everything on your phone and every message you've ever written. No, I'm entitled to privacy. We live in a free society. If you think that I am doing something illegal, go and get a warrant. There should be checks and balances when you are using the kind of technology and the kind of power that these agencies have access to. If they believe there's a case, build that case, get a judge to sign off on it, and then go for your life. But this whole idea of willy-nilly powers that we can just say, what's David Robinson up to? And have a look. It's absolutely outrageous and should not be allowed. And I just can't believe that people are so willing, Ben, to give up their powers, give up their privacy for this crap.
But the suggestion is that takes too much time. If you're looking at a lone wolf attack or.
What time does it take? If there is something urgent happening, a judge is pulled out of bed and they will do it there and then. That is just a complete lie and spin that it takes time. You can get a warrant any time of the night.
ASIO, if you're listening, I think I'd start to have a look at Rob McKnight. He sounds a little bit dodgy. Oh, come on.
Sorry.
We can joke about Queensland, but we can't joke about that.
Yeah, no,
Right.
I am dodgy.
Rob,
Everyone knows I'm dodgy. No. Ben, are you willing to give up? Ben, what I would like to do with ASIO is every letter you receive, I'd like to go through it. I'd like to check every email just to make sure you're not doing anything wrong. You okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Got no troubles with that whatsoever. Go through all my stuff. I could not care less.
Every photo you take.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of those photos.
You know what?
That's
What we need to allow. Hang on, I've got it. You like Big Brother, Ben? Let the government put cameras in every home in Australia just to make sure nothing untoward's going on. And that way they can monitor the entire situation and make sure no one's doing the wrong thing.
But Rob, I think sometimes when you're having these arguments, you start taking us off on these different tangents, trying to be emotive and try and lead
It's
people.
one step. It's step by step by step.
Oh, look, I'm going to go back to just eating my popcorn and watching you two nut this one out because it's been a very entertaining conversation thus far. All the very best. Keep going.
It's all right. We're moving on. I think the viewers know where we all stand on this issue. And if I'm unclear,
Absolutely.
I have a 20-page rant at robsrants.com. Anyway, now to a story we discussed last month on the show. Remember that little boy who's growing his hair as part of a Cook Islands cultural tradition where a boy gets a haircut when he comes of age? The strict Catholic school he attends said it violates their uniform policy and demanded he get it cut earlier. The parents took the case to the Queensland Civil and Administrative Tribunal and they ruled the school did discriminate against the boy and ordered the school not to expel him. The school also had to issue a letter of apology to the family. The school had to allow Cyrus to continue attending pending the outcome of the hearing. Ben, is this a good outcome? Should the student have respected the school's uniform policy?
No, I think that it's very clear with this, and I guess this is where we sometimes fall down. Every single situation needs to be looked at differently. And yes, I completely understand when you're enrolling your kids into some religious-based schools that there are some things that you would expect to adhere to. But look, I think that there sometimes is a cultural reflection which shouldn't restrict somebody from being able to attend that school. I mean,
then don't go to that school. Pick another school.
No, that's not necessarily the outcome. It's not the outcome. Look, I think, people are allowed to be at these certain schools and not restricted because of their cultural background. Honestly, I don't absolutely, and I don't know this for certain, but I feel like that's a cultural reflection when it comes to this haircut and in this individual situation. The right outcome has come out, and that is that a formal apology is required, and that's what has been given. So I'm really happy with this outcome.
You enroll your kids in a Catholic school. They're in school, and then you say to the school, well, I don't want my kids learning about Catholicism. I don't want them learning about the Bible. I don't want any religious studies involved with them. Are you entitled to that because that's your religious belief?
Well, let's open up the case for that when that's the case.
No, come on.
But it's not. No, because you can't. Do you know what, Rob? You do this all the time. You try and lock us into...
Yes, I use examples to illustrate a point.
No, yeah, but your examples are not great. So, and I'm sorry about that, but,
No, Ben, it's just because you know these examples lead you to answering a question the way you don't want to answer it. I'd say they're very good.
Like, I'm happy to... Do you know what? Like, let's ring Ticker and tell them the show's going for 5 hours today because I will sit here and argue the same thing with you all day. And it's just that let's look at things individually. This particular situation has been examined and that's the outcome, and it's the right outcome in my mind. You talking about... changing the curriculum at a school because of a difference of an opinion of religion. Look, that's a completely different situation. We can't examine those two things
when
on
you
the
go
same
to a
scale.
school, you accept the rules that they put in place. My kids are at a religious school. I'm not religious in the slightest. Not that keen on them learning religion. But I've made that decision because to give them a better education, and I abide by all the rules and regulations of that school. And so I have no problem with any of the teachings they get.
Help me. Oh, Robert.
So what you're saying, just go to a different school. So I'll just say to you, you don't want your kids learning religion, then just go to a different school.
I agree.
But
no,
don't want to be
Robbo,
that.
I agree with you. But I've made the decision to let them learn religion so that they get that education.
Your point doesn't get made by talking over the top of people. Sorry. Just want to make that clear. And I have to learn that myself.
Anyway, should a gay teen be allowed to go to a Catholic school?
I would say yes.
Why? Because that's against what they believe. So is this not the same thing? Or should I be allowed to go and say, look, my teen is gay, but I really want him to get a good education. So would that be okay?
There are many schools that won't make that an issue anymore, and it's also against the...
Look, how is that different?
Because sexuality is a different thing as opposed to
cultural
religions.
Values? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, but basically, they've also said that this was discriminating against him because of his culture and because of his cultural values. But he
chose to go to a Catholic school.
But so would a gay kid. What's the difference?
You know
I don't
what, Robert?
understand
I
the
will say
difference.
you've raised a very valid point here, and I'm going to be a hypocrite and say no. I think the kid should have got a haircut, and I think the gay kid's allowed to go. There you go. I'm a hypocrite. Let's move on.
Okay, let's move on.
Don't know where that leaves us. Well, we're just over halfway through the year and already there have been a load of celebrity feuds. The Sunday Telegraph took a bit of a look at this. From breakfast stars to celebrity chefs, it certainly wasn't smooth sailing in the world of the rich and famous. Here's a few of our favourites as brought to us by the Sunday Telegraph. Julia Zemiro, a favourite of ours, went up against Sunrise and Samantha Armitage. In a tweet, Julia said she always said no to appearing on Sunrise because the program gives a platform to commentators like Pauline Hanson. She then had a swift reply from the executive producer, Michael Pell, saying that she hadn't been invited for at least 18 months. Then Sam weighed in, talking about the sisterhood and Julia. Julia bowed out of the fight. Ben, what did you make of this one?
I feel bad because I really like Julia Zemiro and I have loved her whole career. But unfortunately with this one, I'm going to go with Sam on this. And Sam and Michael Pell, I think that I don't know what was going on with Julia that day. I think maybe
Hang on, why was it against the sisterhood to say that she doesn't go on Sunrise? What's that got to do with the sisterhood? And I really like Sam and Michael, but why did Michael feel the need to respond? And, you know, like it's a bit of a he said, she said. Julie just made a point. This is why I don't go on those shows. I don't support Pauline Hanson's view. Why did it need to escalate?
Because the nature of executive producers on morning television is that they're batshit crazy, and I think you should be familiar with that.
Guilty as charged.
Yes, that's 100% right. You know, it was his ego in the way. He jumped in a little bit quickly. But you know what? When it came down to it and we examined some of those tweets, I can only go with my emotion and my gut instinct. And I just felt like Julia Zemiro was going after something that probably, you know, she didn't have the right standing point for. But, you know, look, that's just me. And I love Julia Zemiro. So,
why doesn't she have the right standing point? She made a personal decision. And when it was brought up, the fact that she did a cross into Sunrise, she said, I had to as part of contractual arrangements with projects I was working on.
Look, at the end of the day, go, Robbo, please
Sorry,
help
Ben.
me.
Sorry, Ben. Sorry. I was just going to say, I get your point, Rob, but she should have written it better. It was actually written poorly. There was a different way to write that. And I'm also going to say there was massive ego on Michael Pell, but there was also a bit of ego in the way that was drafted. She could have said, because she was saying, I've declined multiple things. All right, well, that's come out to not be overly true. But if she just said, look, these are the shows, I love telly, or I love doing interviews, I love having fun, but these are the shows I won't do because of this and this and this. That's where she fell down.
Okay, well, another one that caught people's eye was the infamous war between Carl Stefanovic and Georgie Gardner. It's been reported for ages the two were not exactly fans of each other, which was spectacularly confirmed when Carl bagged Georgie out on a phone call in an Uber. When Carl returned to Nine, Georgie was redeployed to other areas. Robbo, do you have to pick a side here? Pick a side, Robbo. Whose side are you on?
Oh, look, it's just it's a clash of personalities, isn't it? You know, I love Australian television, and I think that television is the winner. And I think it's just fantastic that both of these people are still on our screens. I wish them all the best. I know you're watching, Carl and Georgie. We appreciate it. But yeah, no, television's the real winner.
Do you know, Robbo, I am actually unknowingly, or was unknowingly, in a celebrity feud. Not that I'm the celebrity, but a celebrity has a real issue with me. Marty Sheargold from Kate, Tim and Marty has bagged me out on his national drive time show no less than 3 times that I'm aware of, and I don't even listen to the show.
Little dig there.
Yeah, but why?
The feud's still on. The feud's
He's probably
on.
got a point.
So
He's probably got a point. Tell us what happened.
Apparently, so it turns out I had coffee with him and Tim when Studio 10 was first starting, and Marty seems to have taken exception to me being a very boring individual and obviously didn't enjoy the coffee. I don't know if it was that or the fact I never used him on Studio 10, which I don't have a problem with Marty. I'm in a feud that I didn't even know I was in, and I don't have a problem with the guy who hates me. So it's really, really bizarre. But yeah, my name has apparently come up on the show a couple of times, and I heard one clip, and he's just... oh, what a boring individual he is. Remember that coffee? And it's like, I'm sorry, I'm not entertaining. I don't know what to do.
Can I suggest, though, Rob, that perhaps, you kind of touched on it there, perhaps the reason that there's a bit of animosity from him is that he was never used on the show. So maybe he's a bit jealous. Maybe he's a bit put out that you never used him on Studio 10.
Maybe, and I certainly don't want to say that about Marty. I don't want to assume that. I'm happy to assume that I'm a boring individual. You've both been out with me, and I've had to wake you both up a couple of times when you've nodded off.
Oh, sorry. Just happened then. Sorry. Oh, sorry. What? Yeah, Rob, great.
Are you still with us, Ben?
Yeah, no, look, I'm scratching my head really on this one because I feel like I haven't been given all the information. That story doesn't completely add up. I'm not saying you're a liar. I'm not saying that.
It's on his show. He's done it. Like, seriously, that's the only time I've ever met the man. I had coffee with him.
On a high rating radio show like that, they've taken the time out for him to say, oh, that Robert McKnight.
No, it's come up when they've reported on my stories from TV Black Box, or they've said something about Studio 10. It's not like he's done I'm going to do a Rob McKnight segment. It's just when something I've been involved with has come up, and he's seen the name and he's gone, oh, that Rob McKnight, Jesus.
He's a pretty level-headed guy, though. So do you know what I reckon we should
So it is my fault.
No. Look, I know I feel really bad. You know, I feel like my mum. She does this with her children. She never picks a side or supports her own. She's always quick to play the devil's advocate against.
I'm sorry, we've lost Ben's microphone there. I can't hear you anymore, Ben. No, I'll put it back on. I'm joking.
I have a solution. I've got a good
okay, I turned you back on, mate.
Okay. Righty. I've got a good solution. So what I reckon that you should do is get him to come on and do the McKnight Tonight special, do a podcast with him, and maybe unpack that. Because I reckon he's a pretty level-headed guy, and I reckon the two of you would actually get along. Maybe you were having a bad day. Maybe you had a decaf coffee by mistake.
Maybe I was running late because when we were starting Studio 10 up, I was really, and I was frazzled. I might have come from something. I don't know what it was, but I have irked him big time.
Well, anyway. At the end of the day, when we know what the outcome is, if you're going to pick David Robinson or Marty Sheargold, who are you going to pick? Who are you going to pick, guys? So
be Robbo every day.
Pick someone.
All right. Enough about me. And geez, we've indulged a bit. You know what? We need to get some latest news headlines, and for that, we go to the Ticker newsroom.
Thanks, guys. Now let's check some of today's top stories. Healthcare workers are among the 273 new COVID-19 cases reported in Victoria yesterday. Victorian Premier Dan Andrews is urging Melburnians to start wearing masks to avoid the deadly virus spreading. It comes as the national death toll rises to 108 after a man in his 70s died. New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian says her state is at a crossroads as 7 new cases are recorded. One of the cases is an 18-year-old man from the Blue Mountains who visited Crossroads Hotel in Casula on Friday, July 3. 5 of the new cases are returned travellers who were in hotel quarantine. Australia's business leaders are calling for Australia to end hard lockdowns. Business Council of Australia CEO Jennifer Westacott says we need policy certainty, warning against a stop-start approach. The chorus comes ahead of the next National Cabinet meeting. And President Trump has revealed that the US conducted a cyber attack on Russian trolls back in 2018. The cyber assault focused on the Russian Internet Research Agency. It's the first time the president has confirmed such an attack. The resistance against the Adani Carmichael coal mine in Queensland continues. This time, landowners in India have hit back at the company, taking legal actions over land rights. The controversial mine has been the target of environmental activists for years. Let's have a look at the weather for today. As we can see, Melbourne a top of 16. We've got Sydney, plenty of cloud around, a max of 17. Brisbane, a top of 22. Over in Perth, we've got a top of 21, but some rain around there. And in Adelaide, a bit of sun and a max of 16 degrees. And guys, that's the latest news and weather. Back to you.
Thank you, Adrian, and welcome to the Ben Robbo Show. That was Adrian Franklin reporting from the Ticker newsroom. Now it's time for Robbo.
Robert, thank you. It is finals week on Masterchef, and as we get closer and closer to the end, it means we're saying goodbye to more and more of our favourite stars, and last night was no exception. We said goodbye to the man who knows his way around vegetables, the wonderful, the one, the only, Reece. Have a look.
We all felt it just wasn't finals worthy. So I'm sorry, Reece. That's why you're going home. Okay.
When you walk out that door today, I want you to strut like you mean it. Because you are 10s across the board to us. Because you're wonderful. And we will miss you.
Never a truer word was spoken on Australian television, but we are very lucky right now to have Reece here on the Rob Robbo Show. Reece, good afternoon to you. Sorry to put you through that again. Is it still painful to watch?
It nearly brought a tear to my eye, but yeah, it's really nice to watch actually.
Oh, nice. So you're the veggie man. You know, you're the show's resident vegan. You chose a dish that was all about vegetables. That's your forte. What happened?
I was really happy with the dish, but I think at this stage of the competition, it just comes down to the most minute things that you probably don't really think will count, but they count. So, yeah, the judges have to choose one dish, and they chose mine to go home.
Do you think if there was any other dish that you've used before or seen with the other courses that would have been better for you, that would have given you more success with the judges?
No, because I think, like, in my mind, I was going outside of my comfort zone because, like, obviously I'm known for making desserts, cakes, tarts and whatnot. So doing the vegetable course, I wanted to show them something different that I've not done on the show yet. So I was able to do that. But for me, it was a really fun dish, but it's obviously something that they're probably more comfortable with cooking themselves. So they were able to identify that it was probably a bit safe.
Now, what are your thoughts on this? There's so much pressure now to be creative in cooking, more and more. Do you feel that? And how do you deal with that pressure?
Well, there's definitely a lot of push to, like, do something different or something maybe you haven't done before. And I suppose that was my stubborn side. Like, I'm not that type of guy. Like, I like to cook classic foods. I like classic cakes, classic cooking. So, especially when it came down to the veggie dish last night, the judges called me out for doing something they'd seen before. I'm like, well, that's my style, guys. Like, shouldn't I do who I am rather than trying to appease someone who I'm not? So,
a very good point. Will you ever speak to them again, do you think, Reece?
No, I'll delete them. No, I'm joking.
Yeah,
I love them.
They are cancelled.
They're so nice. They're honestly so lovely.
Oh, lovely. Now, we last saw you in 2018. 2 years is a bloody long time in this world. Are you a different man now?
Yeah, completely. Like, last time, oh, there I am. Last time I was a lot heavier and a lot probably more shy. So I've had, like, a big change in my life and become more comfortable with who I am, and I suppose, like, identified what I like to cook a bit more, and just stuck by that.
Now, do you think if you had got to, the last two, do you think Australia's ready for a vegan Masterchef?
Probably not.
Now, one of the highlights for us, but especially you, was when you met Katy Perry. Let's have a look at that.
Okay, Reece, tell us, what are you cooking?
How are you?
Shit.
Hi, Reece, I'm Katie.
Oh my God.
Now, I take it you're a bit of a fan there, Reece?
I was, like, shocked. Like, I still can't believe Katy Perry went on MasterChef. Is that not, like, weird? But yeah, I'm still in shock. Like, I'm starstruck, obviously. So, yeah, I don't even know what to say.
Well, did she live up to your expectations?
Yeah, she's amazing. Like, I can't believe how down to earth she was. She was so polite, so funny, and even, like, oh, there's a fly. Even after, like, we shot the actual content, like, she stuck around and had a little bit of a chat with us and hung out, and yeah, that was really nice.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Now, we've got to talk about, those bloody other people who are still in the competition. Who cares who they are now, Reece, now that you're not there? But I guess we've got to talk about them. Who would you like to see take out the top prize?
Yeah, I think I'm going for Amelia because if I wasn't able to win as a cake maker, she's a cake maker, so I want her to win just so then I can claim it still, kinda.
By association.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, she's amazing and her cooking's just incredible. So I'd love to see her win because she does do that classic style of cooking.
Awesome. Now, talking about cooking, we've got to really know, what are you having for your tea tonight, Reece?
Tonight, I'm surprisingly cooking vegetables. I'm making a spiced cauliflower dish tonight, so it's going to be delicious.
That does sound delicious. Reece, we are going to miss you on our screens, but we can't wait to see what you do next. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Ben, Rob and Robbo Show.
Oh, thank you so much. You have a good one.
You too, Reece. Oh, the Masterchef Galaxy has lost an absolute star. He was a gentleman. We can't wait to see more of his dishes, especially that spicy cauliflower tonight. But if you want to find out what's happening with the other contestants, head over to 10 and Win from 7:30 for all of the adventures. Rob?
Thank you, Robbo. Okay, it's time for our Random Life Shot of the Day.
It's the Random Life Shot of the Day. Where are you going today? You never know where you'll end up with the Random Life Shot of the Day.
And today we're taking you to the UK, where, in fact, this is the famous Abbey Road crossing, made famous by the Beatles, of course. So it's going to be a mostly cloudy day today with a top of 24 degrees after a low of 14. Let's take a look at some feedback coming into the Ben, Rob and Robbo Show. And Molk says, why was the PM not wearing a mask at the footy yesterday? Isn't that an example of the example he should be setting? And Molk will be joining us in about 20 seconds. So good to see you paying attention to the show, Molk. We have this one from Andrew. I'm in Melbourne. I wore a mask on the weekend when I was in a shop. It was the first time that I'd ever worn a mask. It was weird at first, but I want to do anything I can do to support my state. I hope that we can rally together and beat this bloody virus. Amanda says, I can't see any reason why ASIO and the police should be able to look at MyGov just because. If they have a reason, then get a warrant. Yes, couldn't agree more, Amanda. Nicole says, Rob, so your kids get a better education at a religious school? There is nothing wrong with public education. You get just as good as education in public school. Your comment is very insulting. Well, that's fine, Nicole, but I was educated in the public system, and personally I felt that my education was lacking, and that's why I have put whatever money I can to putting my kids in private education, and I'm not going to apologise for that. That's a decision I've made as a parent, and of course if I couldn't afford to do that, I would put them in state schools, no dramas. But I'm sorry that it's insulting. I lived through the state education when I grew up in Campbelltown, and that is my experience of it.
I thought you said you weren't going to apologise for it. You're like, I won't apologise for it. And then you rambled for 30 seconds and were like, and I'm sorry about that. It's like, oh my God, this is hilarious.
Okay, well then, I won't talk. I was just explaining my position. I don't know what to say to that, Ben. I was just making my statement. Is Amanda mic'd up today? I can hear her giggling in the background. Okay, let's move on. No, I'm confused by that because, yes, okay, I said sorry in there. That's just a turn of phrase. I'm not apologetic for sending my kids to a private school. When I grew up
you don't need to be.
No, exactly. But I understand your point. But, the point I'm making is it's a very serious issue. I'm being told I'm insulting people. Well, the fact is I grew up in it. I have major gaps in my education, and I've had to find a lot myself because I didn't get the proper education in state schooling. So I'm not going to put my kids through that.
I think I think you've got a very valid point. I just... maybe it's Monday, maybe I'm a bit silly because it's Monday, but it just sounded really funny because you were like, I'm not going to apologise it, and I'm sorry. And I was like, alrighty.
All right. You know what? I'm going to take that, and I'm going to take that as a fair comment. All right. It's time to talk TV with our good friend Steve Molk. And Molk, a bit of breaking news this morning with the axing of a long-running Aussie TV show.
Yes, Ben, Rob, Robbo, good morning, afternoon, evening and good night. There's lots going on in the land of television right now, not least of which is the cancelling of Toasted TV. 10 have, through an exclusive on TV Black Box, confirmed that their kids' programming Toasted TV will be finishing up, will be ending. And I believe we've got an alumnus from Toasted TV on the program with us right now. Robbo.
Hello there, Molk. Yeah, good afternoon to you. This is very sad. So I was actually the series producer of Toasted TV from 2009 until 2013. Easily some of the best years of my life. We went around the country, went overseas. Obviously, in the later years, the show changed kind of formats. But it was really a fantastic show when a lot of other people weren't doing that kind of crazy humor. We used to call it, a variety show for kids. We had many different characters. It was just It was so much fun. It was like a fast forward crossed with a Tonight Show, crossed with a cartoon show in the mornings. We did it on a shoestring budget. This is actually really sad as well because a lot of people on the mountain, as we know, Mount Coot-tha in Brisbane, a lot of people are employed here. It's a small team, but there's a lot of people. Ollie has done an amazing job for the past 7 years. We had Seamus Kellen, a lot of other people, but it's really sad to see this go. And I know it's just a kids show, but it's another nail in the coffin of Australian productions. Do you think, Molk? It's just every single time we just get one more knocked off the perch. I don't know what's next. It's just sad, really.
It really is, Robbo, and this off the back of the fact that Free TV, the organisation that represent commercial television, essentially purporting and asking the government for them to drop quotas altogether, which would mean that there wouldn't be any motivation for them to do a toasted TV or any of its precursor television that we, grew up on ostensibly. It is a real shame. And this,
sorry,
I was going to say, this is coupled in with the news. You go, Robert.
Sorry, Molk. Sorry. We've got a delay. I'm sorry. All I wanted to quickly say is that it's really sad, but if there were no quotas, Australian networks would drop kids programming like a hot potato. Now, imagine if that happened before. We wouldn't see any Around the Twist. We wouldn't see Agro's Cartoon Connection. We wouldn't see all of these amazing. I know they're a long time ago, but my point is that there's not that extension. Bluey, for example, is Australian. Now, I know that the ABC had different quotas, but the kids are about to not see any kind of Australian stories because they will be, the moment the government says, oh, no more quotas, the axe will fall, which is really sad. Anyway, sorry, Mom. Sorry.
No, it's all right. I was just going to point out how great you looked in that profile photo of Nicole's earlier with her, and I think it was her daughter and you looking there bright and shiny in the middle of it. But coupled with that, you TV star, the
was
fact
that your mum, Robbo?
No, that's Nicole, who is a wonderful woman. I spent a lot of time with her for a big segment on Studio 10 where we went to their viewer's house.
Fair enough.
Yeah, wonderful woman. Hi, Nicole.
Well, I want to ask you a quick question, and it's not in the rundown, so be afraid, be very afraid. So streaming services with Binge, with what's happening with Foxtel, people are being given the opportunity to get involved with the streaming service. And at the face of that is the two boys who had recently left Gogglebox. Can you tell us a little bit more about how people can get involved with Binge?
I really can't, Ben, because like you said, this is a thing that isn't in the rundown, and I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, okay. Well, this is what we call a boo-boo from me. And I apologise to everyone that is involved, and really thrilled that I got to use the word boo-boo on a streaming service today.
But something you do know about, Molk, and we were talking about Toasted TV being axed. Channel 10 has a new... This is weird because they've axed Toasted TV, and Channel 10 has a new channel coming that's for kids.
Yeah, this is an interesting mix I was just sort of alluding to before. We're going to cancel our Australian content, but then bring up a whole bunch of American content as we get used to 10 Shake, their new multi-channel that we've been talking about since we broke the story in September last year. 10 Shake is coming as a new multi-channel for 10. 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. it will be back-to-back kids programming, things like SpongeBob, Paw Patrol, all the kinds of things we're seeing right now. And then at night, it will ostensibly be other Viacom CBS content, a lot of it from MTV and comedy sort of circles. So we're looking at Tosh.0, we're looking at Teen Mom Australia, the Charlotte Crosby Show, all of those sorts of things are going to be landing square onto the evening part of 10 Shake. But within the morning, where we have the capacity to put Australian kids programming, and we're going to go really heavy with Nickelodeon content, which I understand that's part of, the 10's part of the Viacom CBS family, and that's where that sits. Why would you not move that content over there?
It's a very good point.
This irritates me. That really irritates me. You obviously would have local hostings. It's ridiculous, but Channel 10's not known for making always the right decisions. Now, talking about 10, we'll move that away. We'll leave that powder dry for the moment. But let's go to Channel 7, and they've just had a major sale, Molk.
Look, they have. It's 7 studios, which is something that they've been running and developing content in-house. They have set up overseas in the US and Britain And to help their balance sheet, ostensibly as much as anything else, James Warburton has made sure that they have sold off those overseas arms for Seven Studios. In the partnership they had with Beyond International, they're buying them out. So that means that all of those overseas productions that were either in place or functioning now become Beyond Productions, and Seven get a nice little uptick on their income for what will be the 2020-2021 financial year.
But yeah, very good point. It's going to be interesting. I think it's a real shame. It's not a long-term thinking getting rid of Seven Studios. It's all about owning content as we move forward, and they will no longer own any of the content. They'll have to go to outside production companies. So it's a short-term strategy, but Seven are in a lot of trouble financially, and so this is what they have to do. So, it's just a shame. I don't think they have any choice, but it's just a shame. Anyway, Molk, we appreciate your time and efforts today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
I did it.
I like that.
All right, now it's time for a quick hit of entertainment news as we hit the home stretch of today's episode. Ben, let's talk about the world of entertainment, and it begins with Lisa Marie.
Yeah, absolutely. Some devastating news coming out of Hollywood this morning. It is believed that Lisa Marie Presley, the grandson actually of Elvis Presley, Benjamin Keogh, has taken his own life. Wow. He was a resident of Calabasas, and it was believed that he had used his own rifle, which he had a permit for, to take his own life. The PR representation for Lisa Marie have come out by releasing a press release to E! News, and that says that Lisa Marie Presley is obviously devastated. You know what? This is really interesting news because this is very shortly after Lisa Marie was on a morning show in America discussing her relationship with her son Benjamin. Check it out.
I sort of play friend and parent. I'm trying to navigate that one a little bit, so not too much, but it's really frustrating because you have to let them, as you know, I'm sure, go through stuff, painfully watch that happen, and you know the outcome. They get into stuff now where I'm just like, wow, I can't, it's not done when they're 18.
No. But your son, Benjamin, is the spitting image of your father.
He is.
And so, do they have...
There he is.
Looks just like your dad. Wow. Has he shown any interest in entertainment or music?
I mean, he loves music, but I really kind of don't want to... That's a lot to put on him, so I'm trying to let him do his thing without pushing that on him so much because I want him to feel... I know it's going to be hard, but I want him to...
come to it on his own.
Yeah, he needs to come to something on his own. Yeah. And he's very proud, so when he does something, he wants it to be really good, and I'm sure.
Good for him.
Wow. Yeah.
Good for him. You know what? There's a lot of pressure on young people these days, and, moving out of that story and talking about another young person, which is Naya Riviera. Naya Riviera was on the TV show Glee for quite some time. She was probably one of the most recognizable faces on the show. She did go missing, and her son was found on a boat in California on a lake. And when the police questioned him, it was believed that Naya had gone swimming with him but not had returned. The search is still on, and her co-star, which is Heather Morris, has come out now saying that she will be joining the search, whether she has to go on foot to be able to get those details out there. To get some help out there. She is joining a few of the other Glee co-stars that have dropped everything that's in their schedule to help join the search. So, look, we still don't have the news that we need, but a lot of thoughts and prayers are out there for Naya.
Yeah, and there's some new information today about Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith's relationship.
Yeah, look, these guys, they get a lot of headlines because, look, whether or not they are in an open relationship, it has been widely discussed for a number of years. Now, what has actually transpired is that Will Smith and Jada Smith have taken to an open chat forum to discuss some of their marriage issues, and it was after that that 50 Cent engaged in a conversation with Jada Pinkett Smith, and those text messages surfaced for the public to be able to read. They're pretty damning when it comes to Jada Pinkett Smith's discussion about the relationship with Will, saying the marriage was at a particular point in a lot of trouble and they were basically separated. Look, it seems that the relationship is getting back on track, but I don't think Will Smith and 50 Cent will be friends anytime soon.
No, and it's very interesting. It's actually available on Facebook. What's the name of her program on Facebook? It's like the Round Table or the Red Table or something like that. And it's her and Will. We saw a frame of it near the end of that overlay, where they literally talk about the fact that she had an affair when they were broken up. And he made a comment along the lines of, "Yeah, well, I got you back," which seemed to be indicating he had an affair, because she said, "You got me back plenty." So it's a really interesting.
Yeah, Rob, I think it's really interesting that you say that. You know, rumours of them being in an open relationship date back before they even had their first children. So, you know, this has been going on for a very long time. Maybe they've been living in an open relationship. I don't necessarily know. But one thing is for sure, they do certainly seem to pick each other and resume the relationship. Rob, do we have time to finish with the TikTok of the day? It's only very short.
You know what? We might say goodbye and leave on the TikTok of the day. So let's throw to... Do we need to know anything?
Yeah, all you need to know is this is how I get started. This is how I prep for the Ben, Rob and Robbo show. I don't have coffee. I get involved with this. Check it out.
Okay, bye.
It's clearly
That is like what it's like to work on the Ben, Rob and Robbo show. We'll see you tomorrow.
Well, it's like working with me. Who knows what I'll say?
It's the Ben, Rob, Robbo, Ben, Rob and Robbo show. Ben, Rob and Robbo show.